this evening, what we're going to be doing here is I've got this Harrington and Richardson 48 topper model, and what we've got is a broken lifter and striker on it, so it's not, well, I mean, it ain't striking firing pin. And so we got a new one in. We're gonna put it in, and to be honest with you, I've never took one of these apart to do this, but I've worked on a shit ton of shotguns and stuff. It's all the same process. So come on, go with me. Here we go. All right. Now you got from what I'm looking at, which on a lot of models it's all the same. You got the front trigger pin or trigger guard pin. You got the rear one. All right, so we're gonna drift those out. And like I said, I mean, I'm just doing this from experience with other stuff. But you know, that kind of goes back to what I talk about all the time about if you know how to, if you understand all this kind of stuff, the principles behind it, then the rest of it you can figure out, even if it's something that you hadn't actually done before. You've just done something similar. Now the good thing is we are in the shop. Now let me tell you, it's about 106 degrees outside. It's pretty hot out there to be working on the bike that I was just working on, or my bike. And so we decided we come in here in the AC, do this little project. Now we're gonna just drift this out. You wanna make it, you know, be cautious, because anytime you take apart a firearm, you got parts that can fall out. See, that come out like that. Okay, and we don't want them to fall out, spring, shoot all around, poke you in the eyeball, and all that good stuff. Makes for a bad day, you know. All right, so this has got a coil. What's the word I'm looking for? This kind of spring here, like this. I can't think of the dang type of spring, the name of it, but it'll come to me after I cut the camera off. Anyway, so we're gonna drive that pin out there because our lifter, all right, now look here. It looks like, let's see, it looks like it attaches in this part of the breech block. So we've got to take out the hammer, take this pin out right here, and we'll get that pin out, and we should be able to get it out. There's our spring. That's this part number right there, or part there. Set it over here and finish drifting out our pin. There we go. Alright, so this is going to be the pin for the hammer, which is identical to the other one, but what the hell, we'll keep it together. I'm going to see if we can get the hammer out, because the release lever, Jesus, that's bad. I can't even. I'll tell y'all, one of the things, yeah, when I had the wreck, I'm kind of lucky in a lot of ways, but I'm unlucky in a lot of ways. The part of my brain that was damaged, you got 4 lobes in the brain, okay? Each one does a different thing, but I'm lucky in a lot of ways, because the part that was damaged helps you remember words and people and stuff like that. So sometimes I might remember the word, but then sometimes I can't. I forget how to spell words that ain't got that many letters in them. But it doesn't affect my memory as far as how to do stuff and all that, so I need to count my blessings. But anyway, so the release lever, I'm gonna try to go. I may not be able to. Yep, look at there. All right, good job, David. So, okay, now let's look in here, and there you can see it. This right here, that's the part that's broke. So we've got to drift this pin out here and then replace that part. I don't know why the replacement looks slightly different, because it's supposed to be for this model, but all right, so I cross-referenced, and to the best of my knowledge, from what I'm looking at, the only difference is the return spring for the groove for it is bigger on this one than it is on the old one. But this is a new reproduction one. They may have figured it didn't matter, cheaper to manufacture that way, so we're going to try it out. Everything else mics out the same, so so what you want to do, I think, is assemble everything, put the spring on like that. You can see it slid in between with one arm there and the other arm in that groove. Now, this is a little tricky looking at it, trying to get it in. I went ahead and started my pin over here on this side, just to have it ready so I don't have to fumble around, because this is going to be some tight work. Alright, and it goes in like this according to the diagram and the way it come out. Get it started. Okay. Now, remember the long arm goes you know, to the center where the hammer is. I get it started through the hole. It should hold it for me. It's hard to get in there. All right, I got that started in there. This is gonna be tough. I can see it already.
Go.
Okay, that little spring was kind of persnickety getting in there, but what you do is you'll have the barrel catch. You just have it sitting in there, and that's going to be this part right here, the big part, as you can see, super easy. All right, and then what I did is I use a pair of needle nose pliers, and the problem is this is such a fine, minute little thing to do. I didn't really have a good way to film me actually doing it. But I'll show you. I held what I did is I held the spring like this, and I took this punch, which was a little bit smaller than the pin size right here, and I held the spring in there, and I got it started with the punch right here in there through the hole on the spring, and then I just kind of relaxed it, and then I started the pin on this side over here right there. I just started it in there into the barrel latch and just left it like that. And so I had me a little gap between where the spring was and then where the pin was that goes through. And anyway, and so I had that gap. I had the spring where I needed to be, and so I held it. Now what you got to understand is the latch goes in there, like if the gun's upside down like this part where the spring, the return spring rests on it, it faces towards this side of the gun. Okay, so that's if you were holding the gun up and holding it like you were going to shoot it, it's going to be the left side of the gun. So it goes in just like this. Okay, and so I had my little gap, and I held it with my needle nose pliers like so. You can see how I got it. And then I ease this down inside and where the groove is, and I went ahead and I eased the pin or my punch into the lifter. Once I got that in, I was able to remove the needle nose and then start the pin in it, and then push the pin in and draw out the punch at the same time, and it, you know, it did the job. So anyway, so all right, come around here. Like I said, it did the job. Just like that. All right, I'm just gonna start it a little bit. Like I said, I don't know, I may have to drift it back out. I'm not sure if it'll end up working out like I want or not. All right, so we'll go ahead and we're gonna put the release lever. Lord have mercy. This is why you should wear your helmet if you ride a motorcycle. You could be in worse shape than I am. All right, I'm gonna put that up in there and start the pin for it. Now you're gonna have to make sure that that little spring is, you don't have to, you ain't gonna be able to see it. Standing up, or you're gonna have to push it up so that pin don't, you don't hit it with the pin. I'm just gonna tap it. I'm gonna tap tappy to the other side. Okay, I see something. It looks like before you drift that pin all the way across, you're gonna have to use something to make sure that you raise, or actually you're lowering it, but if you got it upside down, you're gonna be raising that spring. Okay, and then I get it, I put it in, and of course, you know, just kind of wiggling and trying to line it up. Okay. All right. Now, let me let y'all see what I'm talking about. Okay. You're gonna have to feel your way through it, but if you can see, when you get that, you'll have the one bar of the spring right there across the lifter assembly, and if you see the other bar, which is the shiny part in the groove, to the top of the firing pin, the opening of the firing pin there, and it's got to be on one of them groove, or the bottom groove on the barrel latch. Okay, I know it's pretty tough. You can kind of see it right there, and then you see the other one down there. It's got to be on that bottom groove for it to have enough tension. That's the hard part. The rest of it's easy. Next thing is the barrel release. You know, stick it in here like this. Line your pin up, put it in. Okay, so we got that. We'll slide the hammer up. Slide it up through here, like so. Because we're gonna start the pin on this side. And, well, I can find the groove. We'll get the pin in there. My intent is to try to have this started, and then you've got to get the hammer spring in there. Now, on the side of the hammer, there's a little tit, and this part of the spring is going to push down on that tit, and at the same time this part is going to push onto the inside of the frame. I mean, just like it was when you pulled it apart, you know, when you watched me pull it apart. But we're going to have some tension on it, so it's going to be a little hard to get it, but we're going to see what we can do. So we got that started. Now we're just going to push it down, and it'll flop over this little edge right here, and we'll push it down. That's my game plan anyway. Maybe we can do it with this punch. We're going to push it down like so. And get it over there like that. Transfer bar goes up. Okay. Now, all we got to do is put the trigger group in. Now, remember, this little piece right here is what pushes up on the lifter. And so we've got to, this is once again another tricky thing, because we got to get that in. It's going to go in on the left side, on the bar of the lifter side, and this groove is going to go around the pin we just put in for the firing pin, or for the hammer, I should say. So let's take this out. And this little groove at the bottom of it that goes into the trigger group, it engages a little tit on the side of the trigger. So when you pull the trigger, it pushes that up, which pushes the lifter up, so the hammer can, it fills that gap for the hammer to the firing pin. And so I'm thinking, if I set this in here with using a pin like this on this side, start it like it did the spring. Okay, that kind of hangs it there. Take a look at that. And that's my game plan anyway. That kind of lets it hang, and then we can come in with the actual trigger group. Now this spring is for that barrel latch, and so it pushes that forward. So now we got to get all this in there without screwing up. Okay, so if you look in there, for me to be able to get that trigger group in, I have that pin drop down on the hammer just a scotch, or down there where I've got some clearance, right in there. And that'll give me, I got it on its side, so that way I can drift the trigger group in there with the bar in it like it should be, and drift that forward. So anyway, thought y'all might want to see exactly what I'm talking about. Like I say, you got to kind of fiddle with it, but working both sides, work your pin through the trigger and kind of work this. Also, it seems like what I'm running into is put the front pin in first and then pull up on the trigger group. But anyway,
go.
Okay, now let me tell you, like I said, I ain't never done one of these before in my life. This is a mother. Anyway, what you're going to run into is when you're trying to put the trigger group in, if you've got the pin for the hammer, which is, you know, goes through here, if you've got it all the way through holding the hammer on there, you're going to have a hell of a time trying to get this little bar right there, item 30, because it hooks around the pin that goes through here, all right, that holds the hammer. And so, but it just sits inside the trigger group, okay, and it's operated off a pin on the side of the trigger, but it just sits in there. Well, you can't use anything to actually pin it in there as you slide it up into the receiver. I mean, it's got to go either around that bar or through that bar. So what I ended up doing is I drifted the pin back and had it sticking out, drifted the pin and had it sticking out of the receiver just far enough that it was still holding the hammer and the spring, but I could put the bar into the trigger group and go ahead and slide it up in there. In the bar, of course, I had to turn the rifle or the shotgun on its side so the bar wouldn't fall out. You might be able to do it from underneath, but and when I slid that up in there, the bar passed it, and I went ahead and drove the pin on through to make sure that this didn't go nowhere. And it was hooked around the pin for the hammer pin. Anyhow, and so the next thing was sliding in the trigger group. Now let me tell you something. All right, when you slide this trigger group in, you're sitting there, you're fighting the pressure of the hammer, which I can go ahead and release it, but you're fighting the pressure of the hammer. All right, but at the same time, you're trying to keep that plate that lifts the lifter, you're trying to keep it lined up. At the same time, fight the pressure on the trigger, for the trigger spring, and line all three of them things up, plus the two side plates for the trigger guard. And so I'll tell you what I ended up doing. If you look right here, I ended up finally lining it all up, and not lining up, but being able to see the holes. And I went ahead and worked this little pin in there where I kind of pry the center of the trigger hole back. And then once I did that, I was able to start this pin in and slowly work it across, working that trigger hole and tapping until it finally drifted on in there. And now we are like we ought to be. We'll drive the rest of those in, and then we'll take it out to the range, test it out, and see if it shoots. I think I got some 410 shells in the gun room. Anyway, all right, I'll see y'all in a few minutes. Okay, now once again, this little thing's a mother to work on. I mean, it ain't got a lot of room in there. You're trying to line up all these pins, but I'll tell you a little more on how I ended up. About the only way you can do it. And the steel, unless you do it every day, is going to be a little bit tricky. But kind of like trying to put a Ruger new model Blackhawk together without the little special tool called the third hand that they invented because of pain in the ass doing it with just two hands. But anyway, so we got it all together. We're going to go ahead and test fire it. We're out here on the range, so it's nice and safe. Ain't going to kill nobody. I think that's the last 410 shell I got, so